Hey guys, it's Matthew here once again. Quick flashing lights warning as per last video as well. Today we got a bit more of the endgame of the Mjolnir Doryani's prototype Wave of Conviction plus Absolution Scion. So previous video basically outlined the entire character, and this one's just going to take over some of the end game and how I felt about the character overall. So we hit 94, almost 95, but then died a few times to Crucible and tilted into boss fights and shit. Overall, it's not too bad for end game. I was feeling a little tilted at times from building plenty of defense the way I think I have built, fairly well, and still getting shit on by some things, either because I'm purely melee or because Crucible. So for the most part, it's still basically a fairly enjoyable cycling Mjolnir as always. The MTX, as you can see, is very, very flashy, and I used it for like a day without too many issues, but honestly you do kind of have to turn it off to really play a build like this long term. Visibility becomes kind of an issue with Righteous Fire up and then with everything like this going off. So that's just one thing, but aside from that, I wanted the build to come together to be like an Absolution attack and minion based build, and that didn't really happen. Absolution in the end was doing fuck all damage, maybe like I don't know, let's say like 2% of my damage. It'd kind of help like clear up some loose packs here or there, but otherwise pretty much nothing to write home about. I got rid of the Val Absolution and just put in a level 21 for better DPS. It's still decent DPS by itself, and Wave of Conviction is just going to be slightly better, even though we're losing some of its damage. And I think Wave of Conviction is probably hitting the hardest, though from my experience playing previous versions of stuff, Arc and a full Arc setup, possibly still better overall, just because it like zaps chains and then clears screens a bit nicer, as long as you can get it up to that same level of damage, and I think we've managed here or there in the past. But yeah, as you can see, the character can be pretty damn tanky. I'm basically rolling all these 4-way, 5-way things with some extra damage and stuff, because I do have a fuck ton of armor. I got 90 max res to fire and cold, and then all of my lightning taken as fire. I can take some big hits, and for the most part that makes for some pretty comfy gameplay, but like I said, it's somewhat tilting that some things still get through that just randomly shouldn't. So I'd have an easier time with all of these static known bosses than some other random shit. But on top of that, stuff like this, and compared to the previous character, as I highlighted, is a huge disparity. So Stormbrand character, which has damn near zero defense, can still just run around in a fight like this and have 100% uptime. It's got probably a bit less damage than this character does, but it's like completely effective damage. Whereas as you can see for Uber Shaper here with Maven, like I said, it's something like 10% uptime. Because I'm a melee like proc rate thing, I just got to wait my turn until I'm allowed to get in there and start spinning, and then get a bit of damage in. And in some cases, there's going to be a lot of time you've got to wait for until you get that golden opportunity window. And then we do still have that glaring weakness of a little bit of lightning degen, since we're a Doryanic prototype build. So for the things that the build and the defenses are good at, it's really good at. So Maven, for example, Uber Maven, I could tank just about everything in this, and it's a fairly comfy fight. Just got to do the mechanics, not get hit by certain things like the degen beam. But otherwise, did probably like 5 or 6 or something Uber Mavens pretty comfortably, even as melee, because Maven's also not too melee unfriendly. But then you've got Shaper, Uber Shaper with Maven, very melee unfriendly. Searing Exarch could be pretty melee unfriendly. I didn't get the kill on that with the one attempt I had. It's doable, but yeah, not particularly good. And then you got Cirrus, Uber fucking Cirrus. Now that is one of the least melee friendly ones out there, and especially Doryani prototype. The puddles that drop on the ground obliterate you, and I can kind of run through some, but at the end of the day, when a maze is full of puddles and you've got to run through them, you're just gonna fall over. So like, it was doable as well, but you basically need good RNG in the last phase as to what attacks he does. So Dory and his prototype still has some big issues in the end game. We're talking uber end game, especially if you're this melee. If you're this melee, you basically need a bit more damage, maybe like twice as much, or a bit more tankiness, maybe like an extra 1,000 life with some extra regen, something like that. Because without that, you will run into certain problems where you got to avoid things or die to things, blah blah blah. So it's still a bit of an issue here or there, but that's mostly Uber content for the most part. There is still the issue of Crucible. So as I was saying, Crucible is still a bit tilting at times, because you can run into some Uber bosses, face tank some of those things and some four-ways and stuff, and know what you're coming into, but you might spawn one Crucible mob that overwhelms all of your fizz, or like just one-shots you in some other capacity, and you didn't know it was going to come or it was going to happen. And it honestly was a bit tilting at times on a character where you thought you'd built to survive things and you had plenty of defense, and at the end of the day, the best defense is still a really good offense. So the Stormbrand character probably had a nicer time overall dealing with lots of the tougher things out there, even though it had pretty much no defense by comparison. So that's just how it is in PoE. Unless you build really thick and good defense, you're going to be still taking some L's. And for the most part, not too much of an issue, because I don't really like to build really large defense anyway. But every now and again, it does feel good, especially when it all comes together. There will be instances here or there where a lot of the defense will come together, and then it's going to feel really good. And I think I might still be able to pull that off. The next character I'm playing might be able to do something like that. So we'll wait and see. But long story short, Dory and his prototype, in this instance, it was pretty fun to put together. It was a big puzzle to solve with lots of different problems and fires to put out. But wouldn't particularly recommend copying it. There's going to be a better one or two versions that I've played in the past that are probably better to update and copy into, but it was alright. And it's, if you do copy, it's not going to be the end of the world. It's still a good character to clear almost all the content with. There would just be a few issues here or there that might make it feel as though we did something wrong, where I'm not entirely sure we did. It's sometimes just the game. Yeah. So yeah, basically took on most content. Didn't kill a couple of Ubers, but I only tried like once on each, and I typically only like to try about once on each. So yeah, likewise with this Uber Shaper. Uber, I could tank almost every attack out there and was far more durable than the Stormbrand character, but Stormbrand character doesn't give a fuck, runs around, doesn't get hit, 100% uptime. Feels pretty damn good. So if you're looking for more of a bossing character, something like this ain't really it. It's not too bad, but it's definitely not going to be the one that'll take you all the way, at least not in my opinion. As well as that, did do a simulacrum, got up to about wave 26, 27, got a bit overwhelmed by some chaos stuff and also not being ailment immune. You kind of want to be ailment immune for simulacrum. That's about it for the character and anything I need to say. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed the process and seeing the build. It was fun to put together, but ultimately wish it was a little bit better than the outcome. And that's all I got. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and see you next time.